Hey guys, what's happening? It's Junaid here on another live stream. And in this one, I want to showcase the difference between the many cameras that we have access to for our content creation. Now, a lot of people ask me, what camera are you using, Junaid? What are you using so that we can go get it and then make sure that we look as good as well? Well, I want to show I talked about how just a camera is not going to make the difference. It's about how you set up your space is what's going to make a really difference. So I've got multiple cameras connected to my system over here that I'm going to turn on and showcase. So you kind of get an idea. I'm also going to connect to my iPhone here so that you kind of get an idea of what that video also looks like. Again, we have so many cameras available at our disposal, which makes it so much easier for us to not only create content but also show up authentically. And when you show up in whatever setup you have, you show up in the most authentic fashion possible. Now, the camera that you're looking at is the main camera that I use for all of my recordings, my live streams, my podcast, speaking engagement, no matter what it is. This is the camera that I've been using, but I want to showcase all the other cameras hooked up at the same time. So here you see it, and I should have put a little text under each of the cameras and why they look a little different. This one is on the side. So these cameras that are sitting on top of each other are the same cameras, but the cameras on the right side, and you're like, wait, they're right and left. So your right and left might be different than my right and left. So I'm going to go ahead and add some text layer on top of each camera so you kind of get an idea. And I want to reset this text over here, remove the broad border, and then update the text to tell you what this camera actually is. So let's do that. And then I will, so this is the Canon R with a 35mm f1.8. All right, so that's what this camera is, and then below it, I'm doing it on the fly, so you kind of get to see what this app looks like, or what this is going to look like. So this is actually I've got a zoom lens on this camera, and this is a 24mm f 2.8, same camera as the one on top. And then over here, the really wide shot is hey, why aren't you letting me? Okay, I'm pressing the wrong button on my keyboard, obviously. So this one is the Lumina webcam. Double click the text. Let's go. So this is a Lumina webcam, and then right below it I have the crop sensor. Wow. Yay, Command Z actually worked on that one. So this one is the Canon M200 with an 16mm f1.4. So those are the lenses and the cameras that I'm using in each of these setups. Maybe I should add a little background color to this so you can actually see it. And let's do that. There we go. So that's what I have set up over here. And it kind of goes to show like the reason I have this 24, because it's a full wide camera, and then if I were to put it in front of me, you would see a lot more of my background, kind of like what the Lumina webcam is doing over here. You see all of these things behind me, and if I wanted to, I could probably adjust this a little bit like that. And the software that I'm using lets me actually zoom and pan, so I can actually zoom in to the camera where I want it to be, and then just set it right around there. So that gives me a look that I want to show. Now, what was really important when I set up this one camera was getting the settings all right. So if I were to set the auto exposure, this is the automatic setup, and it does have some other things, like for example warm indoors or warm outdoors. Let me see, default indoors. But I had to make sure that the setting is exactly where I want it to be, because it's only as good as the settings that you set up. So I had it really dialed in earlier, but now you can see it's kind of messed up. But that's totally the point of testing all of this, right? When you test it, then you have the capability to control what the narrative is and how you want it set up. As you can see, the color is a little bit different. It's a little washed off. And I don't know if you see this, but the image on this webcam isn't as sharp, because again, it is a much smaller sensor, and I do this all the time. I'll show off this little box here. So in this box, you can see this tiny yellow dot is how large the sensor is on this web camera, versus all of these other cameras have a much larger sensor. So it's able to capture more light. It's able to create a better depth of field, and you can see a lot more. So I'm gonna zoom this a little bit. You can see a lot more clarity in your image. So if I were to switch back to full screen here, and then just switch to one of these cameras. So let's do the Lumina camera. So this is the Lumina camera. If I were to this mode it, I don't know if it's working, but if I just were to do this camera, you can see the quality of this camera lens, and I could probably play around with brightness and temperature. Again, you want to make sure that you're setting it all up based on how you want the look to be. The more natural the look is, the better, of course, because you're going to show up like that. So let's see. Now I'm going to switch to my other camera. So this is the side camera that you've probably seen already. This is the higher end camera, the same as the front one. And then this one is the Canon M200. So now this gives me a very similar look to what I see in this camera. So if I were to put these two side by side, there we go. It's a very similar look. I've dialed in the shutter speed and ISO on it, so it's a lot clearer. And if I were to just crop in to the shot, you could kind of see how much blur each camera has. And I'm looking at my bigger monitor here on the side to get an idea of the depth of field. So what I've been saying is that the f1.4, even though this is f1.4, which is much larger opening than the f1.8 on this camera, right? So this is f1.8 and this is f1.4, right? So I'm showing the different fingers. So this is the f1.8 and this is the f1.4. Even though this is a larger opening, this should have been more blurrier background, right? But because this is a 16mm lens and this is a 35mm lens, that makes that background to be much closer, and as opposed to this one, right? So you could kind of see it in the shot. I know the size of the shelf is actually a clear indication of what type of lens it is, right? So the shelf height in this camera is much larger than the shelf height in this camera, and you can see the clear difference. I mean, these cameras are side by side as much as I could, but you can see the difference. So if I were to, let's say, push this camera a little further back, again, you'll see a different kind of look and feel. There we go. Again, because the camera lenses and the sensor side, like all of those things make a huge difference. And then you can tell the difference between, hey, how big is lens, and how much closer is it bringing the background to you. So even though I have a 8-foot room, if I were to switch this rear camera, I guess it's not working. I guess something moved. I've been moving around a bunch of stuff here. So even though the shelf is 8 to 10 feet away from me, because of the focal length of the camera, in this shot, it looks like the shelf is closer to me, as opposed to in this shot, it could kind of tell you the shelf is further away from me. So again, you want to see what works best for you. And then even though this camera has a larger opening, but because it is a crop sensor, the focal, the depth of field feels different. Again, I don't have, if I had 30 millimeter on both of them, you could probably tell a better difference, but again, it's not. So we're going to continue on to the next one. I love to showcase these two cameras side by side. So I'm going to bring this one and this one. Now that you can see up close and personal the difference between a larger sensor and a smaller sensor. So again, I'll bring this one in because I'm looking directly at it. And let me bring this on the right side. So you'll see the difference between the two cameras here. Again, on the webcam, it's a lot like everything is in focus, which makes my face feel a lot less in focus because everything is in focus. They're using infinity focus. Now they do have some cool things that they can do. Let's see if I can enable that cameraman feature using the plus mode. So here's the cameraman feature where it's going to zoom into my face no matter where I'm going. Again, it's a gimmick, right? You're just panning the camera around. But the other thing is, if I can bring better color to this image, right, to make it look a lot more kind of like similar to each other, I think that's where I would be much happier. So I like to do that similar look and feel compared to the two. And let's see, detail. I can turn off the depth of field feature in this camera, and it'll try to do the same mimicking of blurring out the background and focusing on the face. So now my face looks a lot sharper in the webcam image versus what it looked like before. And if I were to, let's say, bring in this guy. So both of these are the same webcam, right? So this is the webcam. One is the plus mode where it'll move around with me with the detail, depth of field feature turned on, the edge strength turned on. So it's blurring out the background via software, and then you could see the difference between the two images. One of them is much sharper. The other one, again, looks a little softer. So that's one of the biggest difference when you get the right type of camera, get the right type of setting. It doesn't matter which camera it is, as long as you have good lighting setup like I have in here, you're going to look sharp and you're going to look great and you're going to create a much better connection with the audience. I hope this was a little bit helpful as I showcase the different camera angles and different camera sensors. Again, I love experimenting these things, and I'm researching this stuff basically all the time. The new stuff that comes out the park gives me a better idea. Oh, I wanted to also share what the image from our iPhone looks like. So I'm going to add the camera in. See, so I've got my smartphone camera right here, and I'm going to put it next to the webcam.
Sorry, I couldn't find that in your home.
That's okay. So now you can see the difference between the phone camera that's already in your pocket versus, let's put it right here, versus the webcam. And if I were to, let's say, add this one as opposed to this one, you can see the difference, the clarity, the HDR, like on the smartphone camera, which is this one, my face is so much sharper compared to the webcam. Again, leveling up is all comes down to, hey, what stage are you in right now, and what's the next stage that you can go to. So if you don't have any, if you have an older camera, but you have a nice looking smartphone, I would totally recommend to use your smartphone as a webcam for your setup, because you can see how sharp this image looks. And then when you are ready to level up, you can then get one of these higher end cameras that are going to show you in the best color possible. That's all I've got for now. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to message me. Feel free to drop a comment in here, and I'd be happy to answer your question. All right, it's not just about the camera. It's about the entire recipe that makes your studio look amazing. All right, I'll catch you in the next one. And if you have more questions, you can also grab my book. Let's grab the book. 7 Stages of Home Studio Evolution. I talk about all of these things in here as well to get a better idea. All right, that's it for now. Talk to you later.